We're really excited to have you out here. Me and Casey, you know, we love football. We want to share football. We want to talk football. So we decided, let's start a clinic, right? And this is our second year. A lot of you were here last year, told us really good things. You know, like I put on the flyer, this is a clinic for coaches, by coaches. We go to a lot of clinics too, and we know, you know, what we want to see. We want to be able to talk to the speakers. We want to be able to interact with them. So we hope there's a pretty good lineup here for you. Hopefully there's something to see. Don't have our wing tee guru here this year. He had to go watch cheerleaders in Anaheim. So if you want to know wing tee, give me a call later. I'll set you up. Okay. Tonight we've got 3 keynotes, and they'll be here in this room. So first, Kurt Hines. We'll hear from him here in a minute. Then we've got Todd Sheldon. He'll be after that. And then Fran Johnson, okay, from Benedictine College. Okay. We have, what am I trying to say? We've got Vice's helmets here. I don't know if you've seen their product. It's a pretty amazing helmet. So talk to them before you leave. They're going to present in between our sessions and show you a little bit more about the helmet. It's a pretty freaking cool product. Okay? So, without further ado, Kurt Hines. He is from Coronado High School in California. Basically, he lives in paradise, so be jealous of him. He came from New Hampshire, where they were in 3 state title games in 4 years, and he's currently working to turn around that Coronado program. He can tell you all, you know, the good things about it that he's doing. I actually had the opportunity to go out there. I was on family vacation, and I figured, why not go talk to him? You know, you've probably seen him on Twitter at Coach Hines CHS. Okay, great stuff. Guy loves football. Hopefully he can spark some passion in you if you're starting to, you know, need it, right? So, Kurt Hines.
Thank you very much. Okay, I want to start off by thanking Bart and his staff for having me be here. I'm going to have everyone start for a second. Do this, if you can, with your hands like this. Come on, participate. I'm a 4th grade teacher, so I need some participation here. I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, clap, and on clap. Clap. 1, 2, 3, clap. That's awesome. I've been blessed to do a lot of speaking over the past 24 years, from situations like this and with like 4th graders, and that's the first time, legit, in 24 years, we didn't have people to clap. My first experience with that was a college professor that did that, and it took us, our college class, about 7 tries. I was, and I kid you not, the last one to go. I was an idiot. I'm excited to be here. I'm going to talk about the power of why. How many of you guys know why you're here right now? Show your hand. Okay. Some people aren't raising their hands, you're just still asleep, whatever. The fact is, we're all here for different reasons. Some of you are here because your head coach said, hey, we're going to this. Some of you are here because you are brand new to coaching and you want to learn more. Some of you have been, I was talking to a gentleman on the staff here who's been coaching for, gosh, 40-something, 43 years or whatever, which I just absolutely love. We're all here for a different reason. I'm going to share my why, and my hope and my prayer is that you can take one thing away from what I share and apply it to what you do, or just have you reflect on what your why is. Let me start here. It's not a better coach than me. You guys taking notes? Write that down. Okay, there's not a better coach than me. I'm going to say it one more time. In this room, there's not a better coach than me. How many of you right now are ready to tune me out and just be like, who's this arrogant SOB? Anyone? Come on, no one? Okay, all right, one guy in the back. Right here. My favorite meme with this guy, I don't know who he is or where he's from. Someone call out, someone be honest for a second. When I first said there's not a better coach than me, someone tell me what came through your mind. Yeah?
I thought you were going to motivate us to talk about how good of a coach we were.
How good a coach you are? All right.
All of us.
All right. And my hope is part of that. Absolutely. Anyone else?
I was waiting for the punchline.
The punchline, exactly. All right. The problem with it is, how does society define success? Who's the most successful coach in the NFL? Bill Belichick. And whether you're a Patriots fan or not, if you know football, you got to say, if it's not Bill, he's one of the top 3. So how do we define success? Success is defined by championship rings. Success is defined by titles. Success is defined by how far our team went in that season. And I hate the fact, I was just talking to this coach over here, I hate the fact that I still ask this. When I meet someone new in a job, I'm just curious, how did you guys do this year? How many of you have ever read the book Inside Out Coaching by Joe Ehrman? If you haven't, and I mean this seriously, I would write this down. Joe Ehrman played for Syracuse and played lacrosse and football, is in the Hall of Fame, I believe, at Syracuse, and then went to the Colts for 14 or 15 years. I won't steal his thunder, but in all the books I've read, both of them, just kidding. Inside Out Coaching is one of my favorite books that talk about what coaching is all about. He talks in his book that he went to the NFL, had great success there, now coaches high school football, and he talks about how when parents ask him, hey coach, how are we going to be this year? Whether it's a booster that kind of has a hand in how long he stays around or whatever, he just says, ask me in 20 years. And my goal is to get there as a coach. To say that and to mean that, say ask me in 20 years, because he understands what we're doing and why we're doing it. Society sees success a little bit differently, okay? How I define success. When I stood before you and I said, there's not a better coach than me, I truly mean that. And let me tell you why I mean that. Because I've won several championships, but it has nothing to do with that, because I've lost more games than I'd like to admit. Okay? How I define success is, I know my number one goal is to empower lives. Every morning I wake up, my prayer, my goal is I want to change someone's life. Some days I'm able to affect several people. Some days I fail miserably because I'm too wrapped up in my own woe is me, whatever it is. But my number one goal is to empower others. In other words, I know my why. I'm not going to have you raise your hand now, but I think too many of us, coaches, parents, teachers, men, women, go through life. My wife is my best friend. She still doesn't know her why. And that's not a knock on her. She's my best friend. I think too many people go through life and they don't know what their why is. They're not fulfilled. Okay. I am going to ask for a little participation here, not out loud, but take 1 minute. Tell someone to your left or right why you coach. Take 1 minute here. No one's in there.
No, you're good.
Okay, about 10 more seconds. The next question I have is, how many of you believe what the person told you? Okay, a lot of guys are raising their hands. Okay? How many of us, raise your hand here and you don't have to point at someone, but how many of you have coached against someone or with someone on the staff, whether it's for a season, 10 years, or maybe currently now, that they tell you what their why is, but their actions show something completely different? We all know people like that. We all know people that say, I want to make a difference. I want to change lives. And then the season starts, and then they lose a game, and then something else happens. Now, the problem is, everyone says the right thing. Okay? Everyone in this room is a salesman. Okay? At one point, you sold a school and said, hey, I'm your guy for the head coaching position. Or you sold that head coach and said, I'm your guy for your offensive coordinator. Or you sold your wife and said, I'm the guy you want to marry and be with for the rest of your life. We've all sold someone at some point on something. And the problem is, we all have, I call up here, the interview answers. Okay? Now, the question is, why is there a picture, I don't know if you can see it well, of a ceiling fan there? In life, there's always that proverbial crap. And sooner or later, it's going to hit the fan. Okay? And when that proverbial crap hits the fan, we find out people's true whys. You find out what they're really made of. Because I could sit down, or we could sit down, one-on-one with everyone in this room. Go grab lunch together, have a drink together, and just talk football. And I feel like every single one of us would probably walk away pretty impressed. Just wow, that guy wants to make a difference. Wants to change lives, wants to give back. The number of times I sat down with a coach that wants to be on my staff, or not my staff, because it's anything special, but when I interview coaches, I want to make a difference, I want to give back. And I always get excited, because I don't get excited because I believe them, but I get excited about the fan. It's going to happen. Sometime in practice, a player's going to talk back to him, and I want to see what he's going to do. Sometime in the game, we're going to have a defensive or an offensive scheme, game plan. It's going to hit the fan. I want to see what they're going to do. So, we all say we want to do something. Our actions speak so loudly. One of the quotes, not for me, I heard years ago, your actions speak so loudly I can barely hear what you're saying. Actually, it didn't come from my father, but I know my father said this to me all throughout middle school and high school when I talked about, I'm doing my homework, I'm doing it. And he's like, your actions speak so loudly I can barely hear what you're saying, because the report card would come out and it would show something different. So, when do people believe in us? People believe in us when our actions match our words. When our actions match our words. How many, don't raise your hand here, and I'm as guilty as the next guy, but how many of us talk to our players about treating your body right and then drive through this fast food place, that fast food place, and I justify it. During the season, game ends on a Friday night. By the time you get back to your school, and by the time you lock everything up, and by the time you do this and that, it's, gosh, 11:30, 12:30, 1:30, and you stop and you get the burger and the fries and all that stuff. And I'm not saying we have to be perfect, but our actions have to match our words, or our players, our parents, the administration aren't going to believe what we're saying. So, as I said from the beginning, our whys are all going to be different, and I don't believe there is an answer as to what a good why is, but I want to share my why. My first coaching experience ever was not that young girl up there, but was I was a senior in college rather, and one of my professors came up to me and she said, Kurt, she goes, I have a job opportunity for you. I was like, great. She goes, well, it doesn't pay anything. It's like, all right, that was a trap. She said, well, it's a 5th, 6th, 7th, and I honestly don't remember if it was 8th grade or not, but a special needs class. I went to school for elementary education that is doing a flag football team and they can't find a coach. Now, I knew I wanted to be a school teacher, so I said, absolutely, I'll do that. Grabbed a buddy of mine who I played football with in college, said, Billy, let's go do this. And the only thing I really remember about that season, I honestly don't remember how we did, but I remember that first practice, we wanted to do an evaluation of the talent. So, Billy had some of the kids, I had some of the kids, we just tossed the ball. I think they were honestly underhand the first few times. And there was a young girl with Down syndrome, caught the ball, and I just saw her have the most beautiful smile on her face, and I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to make a difference. I had never thought, I played football since I was in 2nd grade. I had never thought, I want to be a football coach someday. Never even entered my mind. Until that moment, I was like, I want to do that. Just that joy. So fast forward, I'm going to give a brief history of my coaching. My first teaching career, teaching job, I went to the high school football coach, randomly just reached out to him and said, is there anything I can do to help? Wasn't looking for a paid position, didn't want to be a running back, tight end, any position coach in particular. I said, anything I can do. And as fate would have it, he said, yeah, we need a freshman coach. It's a paid position, and yeah. So I was very blessed, very fortunate. In my first coaching career, it was a very successful high school in New Hampshire. He had turned over a lot of good athletes, so I was able to learn from a good coach. And he was, as Joe Ehrman, the Inside Out coaching author, writes about, a transformational coach. There are transactional coaches that say, hey, listen, you're a stud, so I'm going to really pour into you and make it look like I care about you. But the truth is he can help me with my agenda. So it's a bank transaction, I can get something out of you. And then there are transformational coaches that say, all right, Timmy, you can't put your helmet on straight, but I'm still going to pour into you and help you as well. So I learned from a very good coach. I was a freshman coach for 8 years, I believe it was, at that school. And 2 of those years I didn't have an assistant. So I had to kind of learn a little bit of everything, and there's still a lot I don't know, but by force I have to learn a lot. And then I got a phone call from the head coach in the town I lived in Goffstown, New Hampshire. The head coach said, hey, we're tired of coaching against you, we've seen your energy, come coach with us. Now my son, I have 3 daughters and a son. My son at that time was in 6th or 7th grade and was going to play football. So I thought, yeah, here's a good reason. It's the only reason I left that school was to coach at a high school where I could have a chance to coach my son. And whether you agree with that or not, I know sometimes it's a successful thing, sometimes it's really bad. That's what I did. After 2 weeks, I said to my wife, I'm done. I'm done. I was going to honor my commitment. I wasn't going to quit the job. The kids are great, parents are great, but that one coach I just didn't see eye to eye with, and it had nothing to do with football as far as X's and O's. It was just how he treated the young men. So I said, I'm done. Now my wife had just taken a job as a secretary in a brand new high school at Bedford, New Hampshire, and she said, apply for the head coaching job there. And I was like, Jill, I've been a freshman coach for 8 years. Freshman. No, I'm not knocking freshmen, but that was my experience. A varsity assistant for 1 year. I'm not qualified enough. She said, just try. You know, she was practice what you preach. You're always talking about being positive and pushing yourself. I was like, oh, you suck for listening. So I applied for it, and I'm not trying to sound humble here by saying this, gentlemen. I was not the most qualified person for that job, but somehow I got that job. And I remember being in the interview, and the principal at the time and the athletic director said, if you get this job, Bedford, New Hampshire, they hadn't had a high school, it was a brand new high school. He said, the community here, a lot of doctors, lawyers, they are successful, they want success. How long do you think it'll be before you get to the playoffs? And I don't know why, but I looked them straight in the eye and said, 3 to 5 years we'll be in the state championship. And they both laughed at me. And I was like, all right, challenge accepted. Got the job. First year we set records. I think we still hold records in the state of New Hampshire for getting our teeth kicked in more than any other school. I kid you not. So we had a brand new stadium, and at the end of every game, win or lose, teams line up, you walk through, shake hands, what do you say to the other team? Good game, right? Good game. I kid you not. Not one other team lied to me. They were like, beautiful field, great stadium. No one said good game. Like, we were that bad. Now the disclaimer is we didn't have seniors yet, but we got our teeth kicked in. We got our teeth kicked in bad. And I'll get back to that in a second. Ended up, as Bart said, we went 0 wins my first year, 2 wins, 5 wins. My last 4 years as head coach there, we went to the state championship in Division 3, got bumped up to D2. Went to the state championship there, got bumped up to D1, missed it by a game, and then the following year we were 11-0 in Division 1, state championship runner-up. We lost again, but we made it there 3 times in 4 years, each in a higher division. And I was like, man, this is my home. And then God had different plans, but I'll get into that in a second. So after Bedford, my daughter, I have 4 children. I have a daughter that's 20, a son that's 21. They're 11 months apart. A daughter that's 23, and a daughter that's 27. So my oldest daughter had gone out to California to go to San Diego State, fell in love with it, got married, and she called me one day. We had just finished the season, 11-0, Division State, Division 1 runner-up. Just finished a brand new weight room, like the Taj Mahal weight rooms, and I was like, God, this is it. This is where I'm retiring years down the road. Daughter called and she said, I'm pregnant. Tears of joy, tears of joy. I remember talking to her, my wife, like, oh my gosh, made the plans to go out there, and when she was gonna deliver the baby, and then I was like, suck, we're moving. I was like, well, I teach and I coach football. If I stayed in New Hampshire, we wouldn't be able to see our grandsons more than twice a year. So I knew I wasn't going to stay there. So that's what brought us out to California. Now, I was at a Christian high school for 2 years, a private school in San Diego. Had great success there. Just won't get into the details, but really felt the calling to be a head coach again. And got the job at Coronado, which I'll touch on a little bit. I want to touch on 2 of the toughest things I did. Still to this day, 2 of the toughest things I did. Let me start again. Kurt Hines. Everyone put your hands like this. I'm kidding. You guys are really. Gentlemen, thank you for coming. So 2 of the toughest things still to this day I've had to do was There was a player in the first year, the first school, Souhegan, I coached at. We all bond with different players, and there was a player I really bonded with, so much so that when he had, need for some money, I said, hey, listen, I teach school, so in the summers I'm painting houses, so come paint some houses with me. Come start doing this stuff. So really kind of got to know him a little bit. Graduated, and about 2 years after, took his life. Broke my heart. And parents asked me to speak at the funeral. Hardest thing I had to do as a coach. And I don't blame myself, and I don't feel like a martyr, like, oh, what am I? Because I poured into him. I shared personal things with him. He shared personal things with me. But I still, to so many years, not anymore to this day, but I thought to myself, what didn't I ask him? What else could I have said or done? That was still to say the hard thing. The second thing, this is my son Brockton. The second thing, a little bit funnier now, was we lived in Goffstown, New Hampshire. Neighboring town was Bedford, where I was a head coach. My son played at a different high school, and we played each other his junior and senior year for homecoming. It was in the papers. It was on the news. They made a great fun little story about it. Human interest and all that stuff. His junior year, we had 144 kids in the program. We were stacked, and it was halftime. We were up 21-0. Now we're a spread team, and we had this guard that was small, about $185, but man, he could do a kick-out block on that DN and just earhole people. Nothing dirty, but nasty, violent football. The kid was a stud. And my line coach at the time, Stank is his last name, said, Hines, we gotta, as we game plan, that's gonna be there all day. I'm like, not to the right side, it's not. Because my son played DN. He's like, where? I'm not like, he just had his first son. I was like, someday you'll understand, we're not running that damn play against my son. At all. So halftime it was 21-0. And the way our field was set up, I'm running up the side of the bleachers, I have to go to the bathroom real quick, and my wife's standing there going, just staring. I'm like, what? It was only 21-0. So I talked to my coach, and I knew this anyways going into it. I said, hey, we're taking out all our ones, we put our 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s in. We're not passing ones. We're just no traps, no counters, we're just downhill, just ugly, And that's exciting football when you're going against a team that you need to do that to. So we ended up winning like 56-6, and it was heartbreaking. This picture was taken his senior year, where we won, I won't go into all the details, by 6 points because one of the receivers dropped the ball at the very end when they had our defender beat, and they could have won. But, those two things. That's my why. When I go back to talking about empowering people, we're going to have people, I don't want to get ahead of myself, I'm not going to go through it right now. We're going to have people that we impact. The question is how far do we want to impact them? Do we want to just coach football, or do we want to make a difference in their lives? Fear versus respect. So my first year as head coach in Bedford, New Hampshire, I inherited 3 coaches. The school was there for 1 year before I was. And there were 3 guys that played Division I football at UNH. And they had been successful. 2 of them were captains. 2 of them were like 6'4", chiseled out of granite. I'm not 6'4". I like donuts too much. We lost every game. My first coaches meeting with them, I said, here's what we're going to run for an offense. I'm an offensive guy. Defensively, I'm open to what you guys think. Here's what we're going to do for strength and conditioning. That's a passion of mine also. We're never going to meet on a Sunday. I'm married 4 kids, and they're like, what? I'm like, listen, Sunday's a family day. And they're like, we need to meet on Sundays. I'm like, we're not meeting on Sundays. They're like, you can't be successful. I'm like, just watch me. So season ends, we didn't win a game. We're like, told you. So I'm like, guys, we're not. So we had a meeting at the end of the year after we lost every game that year, and talked about the X's and the O's and the game plan moving forward as far as football. And then I opened a can of worms that I knew was a dangerous thing to do. But I asked them, I said, guys, I'm not going to change just for the sake of changing. But if there's one thing you would have me do differently as a coach, I'm open to suggestions. I want to hear your opinion. It was quiet for about 30 seconds, which seemed like 30 minutes. And then Stag goes, I don't think the kids respect you. And I could feel myself getting red, just red. And I'm like, all the other coaches were like, oh, it's going to go down, And I'm like, give me one example. He's like, I don't know, Hines, they don't respect you. I'm like, Derek, just give me one. I'm not looking for a date and time, but do they talk back? So no, they don't talk back to you. Do they leave trash in the field? Do they leave the locker room a mess, the weight room a mess? Do they not show up to practice? He's like, no, they do all that. And finally he goes, they're not afraid of you. And I felt chills come all over me, just a total peace. I'm like, those are two different things, Derek. He goes, well, and he had just played Division I football, very successful coach that's still there. He goes, I think a head coach should be feared. And I said, I will never agree with that. I said, I will never agree with that. I said, if a kid, and this is why when I go back to the power of why for me, if a kid fears me, he might say, yes, coach, no, coach. And really sound to a person passing by or someone visiting the school, wow, they really respect that coach. But he's not going to come to me if he is suicidal. He's not going to come to me when mom and dad are going through a divorce, or if he's coming out of the closet, or if he's facing trials, or he gets his girlfriend pregnant, whatever it is. So that moment there, right there, for me, was a huge thing. I left that meeting and got in my truck and I was driving home, and one of my assistants who had played in the NFL, his brother played in the NFL, his father is in the Hall of Fame for the Boston Patriots, back before it was the New England Patriots. So he'd been around football for a long time. He said, Coach, don't ever change. Because he was in that meeting. He goes, these guys are in the program because of you. And he was being complimentary. It wasn't because of me, it was because of a lot of us. And Derek, the coach that said that, we used to butt heads a lot those first 2 or 3 years, became a great friend of mine, and is still to this day, he's the head coach now, and having continued success, which I love. He's having great success. But the power of why got me through that. It'll get you through your toughest times. Because if I had sat there in a room with about 12 guys, and that was the only one suggestion, after that no one else said anything, I would have either thrown in the towel after my first year as being a head coach. How many head coaches are in here, by the way? Okay, I think we can all admit, whether it's your first year or your 20th year, it's a tremendous blessing, tremendous platform, but to whom much is given, much is expected, required. It's not easy being a football coach, period. But when you're a position coach, you got your position, and that's it. At the end of the day, you go home, you worry about your 5 guys, your 15 guys, whatever it is. As a head coach, there's a lot more. If I didn't have a strong why, I would have thrown in the towel. Now, as I mentioned, that was the first year as a head coach there in Bedford. We went on to have great success, and after winning 2 games the next year, they said, we're going to meet on Sundays. Like, we're not meeting on Sundays. Then we won 5 games, and they stopped saying it to my face, but I know they're probably chirping in the background saying we're going to meet on Sundays. And then sooner or later, they stopped saying anything, and now, to this day, Derek Stank has his first son just a few months ago. They don't meet on Sundays, which I love. Now, when I got the head coaching job in Coronado, California, I found out, I interviewed on a Wednesday. Thursday, the very next day, they called me and said, hey, we want to call your references. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's great. Friday, I was at a coaching clinic listening. I had my phone on vibrate, and I kind of pulled it out. And I was like, ooh, it's them. So I thought it was them calling saying, hey, we're going to call you back for a second interview, and they offered me the job. So it was just an answer to many prayers. It was fantastic. They said, but coach, don't say anything yet, because I'm like, oh, you got to go through the school board. Like, no, the job's yours, but 2 of the assistant coaches that have been on staff, one for 8 years, one for 16 or 15 or 16, applied for it also. And we want to tell them first. So I said, yeah, just let me know. When I finally get the word, I can put it out there and contact the coaches for a meeting. I met with them. And I sat down, the same thing I told them, I said, guys, talk about the fan. I said, I had the right answers in the interview. You guys probably had the right answers in the interview to the 2 gentlemen that were in that room. I said, and if I were you, if I were coaching somewhere for 8 years and I applied for the head coaching job, or 15 years, and some jamoke from out of town got it, I'd be pissed off. I don't know if I'd want to stick around. So I asked him, I said, just do me a favor, give it 1 year. Give it 1 year, and I promise you, within 3 days or 3 weeks or at some point, you're going to see who I really am. So they nodded to that. I told them what my non-negotiables were. We have no swearing policy. And I told them why, the reasons for that. We're going to, and it's funny, and I won't leave the direction. I see some coaches like, jeepers, no swearing. I threw something on Twitter a while ago about that, and a lot of people retweeted it, liked it. A lot of people were like, why, you think you're better than people? You think you're not, we're not edgy? It has nothing to do with that. My daughter, my 27-year-old daughter, you would have sworn she's not my daughter. She was born by a bunch of wolves and sailors, because she swears more. I'm like, really? What? It's just crazy. The reason I do it is I don't want to be in a game and have a bad call, whether it's a bad call or that's just my perception, and have a player go, what the f, and have it be another 15 yards. That's football. I don't want to have my coaches be upset and drop something. When I started, I didn't want my children, who at the time were younger, to come to a practice and hear dad, coach, saying something they don't hear at home, or my students come by and I hate to say real life because our high school students, this is their real life. Some of them don't make it out of high school. Life happens to all of us. So I don't want when they get out of high school and they get a job and their boss says, hey, you're going to stay late Friday night. And they go, what the that's not my, you know, and then they have to go home to their wife and say, hey, I lost my job because I couldn't control. So that's what I do. That's neither here nor there. So I shared my non-negotiables, and I asked them, I said, what's part of Coronado football? Coronado High School has been around for 102 years now. It's a history, it's a storied school. I said, what's a non-negotiable for you guys? And I looked at Mark, who's now my defensive coordinator, who's been here now for 16 or 17 years. He goes, Coach, we need new blood. We need new blood. And I was excited to hear that, and a good friend of mine who I met when I first moved out to California said, just be careful because these two guys that wanted the job could pretend like they wanted the job, or not wanted it, but pretend like they're on your side, and then things could happen. These guys have proven over and over that they are true character men. They're unbelievable. So they said, we need new blood. They didn't have non-negotiables. I shared with them what my why was. And I said, tell me a little bit about your program. And they said, well, we got this kid and this kid. There are 2 returning seniors. I'm like, what do you mean you're 2 returning seniors? They're like, well, these are the only guys that started last year. I'm like, all right. And they said, there are only 2 guys that have been in the program for 4 years. I'm like, the school's 100, what do you mean? You know, just, there was no, the gentleman that was there before me, real nice guy, met him a few times, just was a passive coach, didn't coach a position, was not a coordinator, didn't talk to college coaches, just kind of sat back and let the other guys take care of things. I don't want to say he didn't have a why because I don't know him well enough, but he didn't ever share his why with them, or they didn't know what it was. The reason I have up here, when your why is strong enough, you can handle the what, the when, the where. My why for coaching football is to empower people. I left Bedford, New Hampshire with 144 kids in the program. That year, I think we were graduating 25 players out of 144 after we went 11-0 and then lost in the state championship. 5 of them were starters. We had a really sophomore-heavy class. So I was leaving at the best and worst time. Best time because I was leaving in really good hands with really good returners. And the worst time because for the same reasons. So fast forward to my first year at Coronado. So I left a program where we, not I, we had built something truly special. And the kids understood their why. They understood what our mission was. Get to Coronado, 2 returning starters, only guys that had been in the program for 4 years. Our first game, let me back up for a second. The Wednesday before our first game, I'm driving over Coronado Bridge, and I get a text message on my phone from my starting Mike linebacker, who's also our starting fullback. Said, Coach, can't come into a practice, got into a fight with my girlfriend. I nearly drove off the bridge. I'm like, you didn't just text me that. Like, what? So I called him because I was driving, and he didn't answer, and I said, hey, sorry to hear that. I'll talk to you at practice. He didn't show up. So I benched him for the first half of the game, which was offense, defense, special teams. That's not why we lost, but it didn't help us. The next day, so Thursday, had about 15 kids. I show up to practice with, I teach off campus, with the little bandage right here from giving blood. They're like, Coach, we can't practice today.